Hello friends, we'd like to share with you a song written by Swami Kriyananda called Make Us Channels of Thy Peace, based on the inspiration of St. Francis. Lord Most High, our Heavenly Father, all our lives we dedicate to Thee. All our labors, all our joys and woes, all our pleasure, all our melody. Make us each a channel of Thy peace. When in darkness, guide us from above. Where there's sorrow, may we sow Thy joy. Where there's hatred, may we share Thy love.
I'd like to tell you a story from the life of a friend of ours, Devi Mukherjee, who was a disciple of Master but never met Master. And he wrote a beautiful book called Shaped by Saints, based on his experiences trekking in the Himalayas and meeting various swamis and holy people. Well, one day when he was out trekking, he came to the ashram of a swami, a small ashram with just the swami there and occasionally some visitors. So Devi asked the swami if he could stay for a few days and meditate with him. And the swami said that he could, and he showed him a little hut where he could stay. And he said, be sure you don't go outside after midnight, because there are many tigers who pass by this way. Well, Devi was very happy to know there were tigers, and he waited up until after midnight and looked out his window, and sure enough, there were 10 or 12 tigers outside. And as he watched, the Swami came out of his room, talked to the tigers, petted some of them, and Devi really wanted to go outside and pet the tigers too, but the Swami had told him to stay inside, so he stayed inside. The next morning, he eagerly said to the Swami, I really wanted to come out. Is it possible, how is it possible for you to pet them and I can't pet them? And the Swami said, well, he looked at Devi very deeply and he said, you have love, but only 60% love. You need to increase your love by another 40%, and then you'll be able to pet the tigers. But it's okay if you watch through your window again tonight. And so after midnight again, the tigers came to visit the Swami, and he came out, talked to them. They rolled at his feet like adoring cats. And the next day, again, Devi said, I obeyed you. I didn't go outside, but I really wanted to pet the tigers too. And the Swami laughed and said, when you have 100% love, you can do what you want. But for now, work on increasing your love. And then, if you love God and love Guru and dedicate yourself to increasing your capacity for love, then you can do whatever you want. Jesus said, perfect love casts out fear. And we're living now in a time of considerable fear with this virus. And love is the answer to that fear. So when we look inside ourselves and try to understand what we can do to increase our capacity for love, the first thing is to look to the past and see where we need to practice forgiveness. Are there people or circumstances or hurts that we've endured that still pain us, that we still hang on to? The teachings of yoga are so liberating because one of the things that it teaches us is that everything that happens to us is drawn to us magnetically by ourselves, by our thoughts, our actions, our feelings. We're responsible for all of it. And we can rail against that as much as we want and say, no, it's unfair. I didn't have anything to do with how I was treated as a child or whatever. But in some way, if we search our hearts and sometimes our past lives, we see that something we did drew it to us. And so knowing that, we can be free because we can let it go. We don't have to get vengeance on anyone else. We don't have to hold on to hatred for any other person, because every other person who ever hurt us was an instrument only for our own karma. So that's the first way in perfecting our love, to let go of all the past. Just release it in forgiveness. And then in the present, to marshal our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions so that they are always kind, always positive, and always compassionate. Never judgmental, never sarcastic or hateful. If a thought arises that's negative, that we don't want, don't claim it. Release it and substitute it for a thought that's positive and kind. A friend would sometimes say, if she found herself saying, oh, so-and-so is so whatever, some negative thing, she would follow it by saying, just as I have been myself. But don't claim any negativity for yourself. Release it all. Keep your thoughts positive. If you feel fearful, there's a wonderful affirmation you can use. Just simply repeat mentally or out loud or in writing, I live in the light of God's perfect love. And keep repeating that until the worry starts to dissipate, until you start to relax in God's perfect love.